All right. Who is all in here? Can y'all hear and see? Hello, hello. Still spinning. That's not good. Try to refresh it. Double audio. 1 second here. Double audio. What about now? Is it still double? You can hear? Weird. I don't know if the audio stopped working for the recording though. Test. I guess it's fine. I'm not sure. Okay. What works for you guys? We'll get started here. All right. So first thing we're going to review is, with the new server that we just set up. We had a pretty dang good week. Just this past Monday, right? We pretty much caught every single news candle possible. For example, like right here, in this little giant boost up in the market. I mean, that was just from Trump saying the war was ending pretty soon. And everyone bid on it and just took off with it. So that was pretty nice to catch. Nice little 1,300% up. And we even caught the tail end for 100% down. Just following the momentum back down. And then Tuesday, we caught another news candle here where we set up in multiple areas here for the downside, and we ended up catching this as well. And that was just because they were talking about setting up mines in the strait. They're talking about how the U.S. wasn't escorting any ships through at the moment, and it caused a nice fast drop for us, where we can cut a pretty large percent there as well, about 300% down. And then here on Wednesday, we got a little bitty news candle here, but it was still relevant. We were in puts here off the orb. There was some news about possibility of California getting hit by some drone attacks, which, obviously very difficult to do and really not the case. So that kind of faded off really quickly. And then on Thursday, we're already on puts for the downside here off the orb for the most part, and a possible 5-minute signal as well on the downside from the MACD. And that just kind of pushed us down from more talk about the straits being closed from Iran. And then Friday, it was just more escalation from Trump. And we were already in puts already in this area from the orb. We got a 5-minute signal for the downside. And we had a clear downtrend here, which we caught all the way down. And it was just more talk from Trump saying they're going to keep attacking. And then they also, around this time frame, they were saying that they're going to send in Marines. So kept us suppressed and completely down. On Friday, right? Friday we usually get not a lot of volume unless it's OPEX for the third Friday of every month, or end of the month rebalancing, which we're not going to get this month because rebalancing on the 27th, which is the Friday. There's also the 30th on the Monday and the 31st on Tuesday. So that would mean that they have multiple days to rebalance and it'll spread out the liquidity. So I wouldn't expect much out of the 27th, but the 20th coming up this week should be pretty good on Friday. So usually on those days we can trade, a good part of like maybe half the day, and then we're pretty much done here. Really nothing else to play after that. Really anything else I played on the day was okay off the orb here, but I took a long here, and then I doubled down on it too hard, and it was just a moment of weakness that caught me on Friday, where I lost way too much money on one trade. After I stacked multiple wins, I was up like 5-6-0 in a row on wins, and then got a little bit too greedy, and I tried to stack it on here when I should have just cut early. So better to cut than be sorry. So that was what our week looked like. Let's see. FOMC, yeah. So this coming week, we do have some data coming up. So FOMC is on Wednesday, and it's still Powell there. There's supposed to be some bit of a rate decision. He could surprise us possibly with maybe some talks of hawkishness. I wouldn't say he would even mention a rate hike, but more than likely it's going to be like a pause, if I would say anything. I mean, check Polymarket on the rate decision. Market. Let's see what that says right now. 17. So right now there's like 100% chance of a no change is what they're pricing in right now. Less than 1% of any type of cut and less than 1% of any type of hike. So pretty much nothing is expected to happen this FOMC. He could surprise us, possibly. I wouldn't say with a rate cut. Maybe some verbiage on rate hikes, possibly. But I wouldn't say he would come out and say that for a matter of fact. He would just probably keep it neutral as always. The data that we saw this past week really didn't matter because all that data happened before the Iran attack, which was on the 28th. So really need to see what the next couple of reports on like CPI, PPI, and all that stuff in regards to inflation is after the war that's already occurred, and with the cost of oil skyrocketing at the moment. So we have that on Wednesday. We have jobless claims on Thursday. Some PMI on Friday. Actually, sorry, not Friday. Friday we have nothing. It's the next week that we have PMI on Thursday, or sorry, Tuesday. So this week we have PPI, FOMC. Yeah, nothing really important. Mainly just jobless on Thursday and FOMC on Wednesday, I would say. All right, so as far as the market goes, Thursday we took a short here towards the end of the day, right here. Basically, we're targeting 660 puts going into Friday. Uh, we got pretty much 35% or so here. And it was a good idea to trim if you didn't have very many contracts. I held one runner, and it was down probably about 75, 80% here. I ended up cutting it, but I really probably cut it way too early. As once I saw that we had some resistance above here on the top of the orb, I could have just probably held it all day since it was pretty much dead, but it went pretty much almost in the money here by the end of the day. Probably didn't make much out of it if you held it. You just take less of a loss, if anything. But yeah, we finally hit pretty much 660, just a little short of it. And this coming week, we probably have a bit more downside. We can probably look for this area here, about 650, 250 or so. Possibly a little bit lower at 649. And as far as there is a JPM caller for the quarterly that the downside is, I believe, 64.75 or so. So that should be like the absolute minimum, which just happens to be, let's look at the 4-hour here. 64.75, which happens to be about here. So quite a bit lower. It's not expected to break or go that low, but that's like a safe low targeted by JP Morgan here. So we'll look to rebound here about, let's see, December. Let's look at this. Probably look to rebound here just about 6,500 or so. Possibly slightly lower than that, but it should bounce somewhere in this area. But definitely maybe some more downside Monday, Tuesday before we possibly make a little rally back up. So look to see if that happens. Gold here hit 5,000 and is rallying quite a bit here. I do have some swings in gold. They're probably down quite a bit. I think it's down like 60 or so percent when I let's look at it. I'll probably take an ad here at this point. This is a nice buy spot, I think, for gold about 5,000. And if this holds into tomorrow, I'd look for more upside here. And Bitcoin's been rallying pretty good here. It just made a nice big move up to 72,800 or so. Maybe a retest back down to 7,100 or so, and we can play it back to 74 and then cut it pretty quickly from there. I would not want to stay in it too long. And everything else is just kind of no man's land. Maybe the best thing to look at right now is photonic type stuff. They do have a GTC event, I believe. Let's see, that should be on Monday to Thursday. So keynote should be on Monday. Let's see what time that is. So about 10 a.m. Central Time for me is when the keynote's supposed to start. And it's supposed to last all the way till noon. So we'll probably end up watching that tomorrow. It's going to be maybe like a sell the news type thing. Let's see where Nvidia's at right now. Nvidia headed back under 183 here, so possibly about 173 to 175 or so. We'll see if it is actually a good thing or bad thing. GTC usually is not great. Usually sells off a bit. But there's supposed to be a focus on photonics, so we can look at stuff like light, which has been on a heater and it's cooling off a little bit. Maybe it'll get a rally into the week. Once they talk about it more. Let's see, cores is dying off a little bit. AAOI had this big move, and see if it possibly rallies here after 100 if it gets back up there. Other names of strength, we can look at software, I would say. It's another good one. Let's see. On Friday, the put from the top of the orb was a 5-minute TTF. We'll go over that one in a second on Friday. So looking at software real quick, let's look at IGV, the ETF here. It's made a bit of a resurgence here. Caught a bottom here around 80 or so. And now it's dipping back again a little bit, but some names are doing well, some names aren't, which is not abnormal, as not all software is going to be making the cut here when AI comes around. So stuff that are good, CrowdStrike, still looking pretty strong here. I think the last time we reviewed this, we're looking at, I think it was like midline here, like 420 or so. We're saying it was going to head to 453. Looks like it got close to it. Could still break it. Net, again, looks really strong at resistance again. So 215, if it breaks 220, you can play it to the upside. DocN also looks very strong here. So breaking 69 here would be a nice upside play. Let's see. Yeah, 69, probably headed to 80 or so, I would say. Some other software, maybe even like Sentinel-1 is looking like it's doing pretty well. Just finished earnings. And once it breaks back over 15 or so, we can head back to 20. Not a very strong name, but still looks like it's finding its bottom here. Let's see, what else? Okay, so what you guys want to look over? Intel. I mean, Intel is, American Semi. And semiconductors have been doing pretty well. What's the wrong ticker? MTC. Let's see. It's kind of been chopping this whole time. A bit of a downtrend here. It's been holding up pretty well, I would say, for now. Took a nice bounce off the 21. Also breaking back over the weekly downtrend here, that's short term, off from January 20th. So it looks like it can head back up. Did see it quite a bit in the news a few days ago, but no real flow to support any type of play on it. It's just been mainly just chopping slightly to the downside as well. So not something I really want to touch for now, but it's definitely a good long-term investment if you like it. It should head back to like 50, 55 or so. Okay, you're asking on Friday the puts from the top. So let's go back and look. Let me turn this off. Alright, in terms of 5-minute signal here, we did get a 5-minute signal here, pretty much right at the bottom of the orb. So here's 910. We hit it right here. That's the first entry. That's the first 5-minute break at 9:10. And then if you look on the 3-minute, what we look for is a break as well. It had a break at 9:09. So the timing is good. The 3-minute broke down on the orb. The 5-minute broke. And then you can also see as it was coming back up and it failed here, I was looking for it to start taking the downside again off the orb here. Here we took a little play here. I kept one contract here. It went down to like probably like 35%. But I still didn't cut it just because I knew more than likely if it failed here, it's coming back down, which it did. And then you can just take another play, re-add here on the orb, and just kind of ride it all the way down. So that's kind of what we did. Even when it bounced here, this is not a strong enough signal to play the upside. There was actually some VIV type action here, right here, but really was not worth playing. It was only maybe about 60-70% max. I mean, it was an okay play, but difficult catch and not that big, so playable though. I don't remember if we played that at all, but it was something that was there. Oh, the top or the spy play. So yeah, I took a play here in terms of for spy here, and I think I added on the orb. Let me review my log real quick. This is why you keep a log, so you can keep track of what you play. So let's see. Yeah, first play I took was at 8:49. So this was actually a TTF play, VIV here at the top here. So if we look at this on the 5-minute, and we also turn on Heikinashi candles, you can see that we are above 70 here on the 5-minute. Really, if you look at the 15 again, we're still on the upside here, above 70. And then here, finally, at the 30-minute, you can see that we have quite a decent gap here. And this is why I played the downside from here. This was at about 30. So 8:45. I jumped into that play at 8:49. So let's go back to the 1-minute here. So if we look at this on the 1-minute, we can see 8:45 is about where it peaked. It tried to break out in the top of the orb, got rejected, and then I ended up taking a short about here or so and playing this down. I did sell it early. I probably should have held this one because usually like on the orb I would sell out into one contract here. But with this play, what I would do is I'll sell out partially, and then I'll just be into runners when we get down to the bottom orb in case it bounces. And if it doesn't, then I usually just keep holding it now. So it came up to about here, and I pretty much sold it here. We got a pretty good percentage off of that. It hit about 150% here. So yeah, if I had just held it through, it would have looked much better. So here it was 150%. Even like down to here was pretty easy. It would have been about 350% here if I had held through. But I did sell a little bit early here. I was playing orb at this point, so I kind of ditched these other contracts. I think I played IWM anyways, 936. Yeah, I played IWM off the orb really. So I played it here. It's a little bit cleaner here looking on IWM. You can see, you can play it here. You can play it here. It was much cleaner looking than SPY. So that's why I was playing IWM. But the gain was not as big. From here to here was only 200%. Could have been 300 on SPY. Cut because there was some sort of data came in at 10. I don't remember what data it was, but I don't think it was significant enough to pull me out of a play. Let's see, what was it? The data was job openings and consumer sentiment. So Yeah, nothing too crazy. So here's 9 o'clock. Um, and yeah, so like right when it gets to the bottom orb, that's where data came in. So yeah, it's safer just to be into runners at that point. All right, let's see anything else to review here. We can also look at UMAC as well. UMAC had some crazy strength here. I was looking at names that were doing the best as we were dropping, and you can see UMAC is pretty gross. Like this run up into resistance here is pretty big. So something to look at if we ever come back upwards. I think UMAC's got, you know, Donald Jr. on the advisory board, so not surprised that this one's doing well. Whenever the other drone names are kind of just chopping along. Here's ONDS just chopping around. RCAT doing decently well. Looks like it still can break up off of 15 back up to 17, 18 or so. What about D Pro chopping down? Even AVAB, one of the stronger names, has a clear downtrend to it. So yeah, let's see if what will come back up in terms of a bounce if we ever get it. So Monday, Tuesday, we get a little bounce. These names will probably break up even higher as it's got a lot of relative strength compared to the rest of the market here. Let's see. What are we at here? Looks like we're headed back up off the lows here from Friday. Back at about 66, 63 or so. You said yeah, you've been skipping play one because your percent of those are generally lower than anything else, but that was the big play of the day. At the beginning of the day, you can just play, half size as a way to just test the market. When in the beginning, I don't really put in a lot of size at the beginning of the day. I'm really just kind of find my footing in the market and see where I can start taking some good plays with confidence. So I wouldn't say skip the first play. And someone has gone through my stats for like beginning of the day compared to the mid and end of the day, and I'm should be well over 80% win rate for the beginning and end of the day. I think it's about, I don't know, 65 something percent for midday. You can go through my daily log yourself and see. All right. Any questions from you all? Anything you want to look at? Let's see. SPY, we're looking at possible downside here about 645, 650 to 645. About 652.75, and then from there, if we drop out, maybe 645, but nothing lower than 645, I don't think. That would be the bare minimum we should bounce there going to the rest of the week. Also depends on what happens to FOMC, but that's what I'd be looking for. Let's see, got about 30 minutes here. All right, if you don't have any questions or anything you want to look at, probably just end up closing this, and then I'll end up seeing you tomorrow morning for live. All right, last chance. All right, well, thanks for joining on live. This will be saved for you guys for something you want to look at later on. I'll go ahead and close this stream. We'll see you all tomorrow for the live. You want to look at AMD real quick? All right, AMD. Ugh. AMD looks pretty ugly. Let's take a look here. So here is a gap up here on news. I don't remember what this news was in October, but here's a gap up. And now it's coming back down to where it previously broke out at. So here it broke out, and here should be support. So you probably want to see if it bounces here. Maybe a gap fill down to 186.68. It's already pretty close here. Maybe a gap down and a bounce. Maybe look for that. Looks pretty weak here. Let's see. Let's go to the monthly real quick. So we broke slightly below the monthly 9 EMA. Still about 15 days left though. So this candle can easily just bounce here, right back up. Let's take a look. Weekly. So the 50 is right down here as well. Pretty much at the gap fill. So yeah, possibly 186 and a bounce from there. That's what I'd be looking for in AMD. Depends on what goes on at GTC, I guess. All right, anything else? Not, we'll go ahead and call it and see if we can continue our little hot streak on day trading. I'm still looking to jump into swings sometime soon, but I'm still waiting for the market to find a bottom before we trend back up is what I'm looking for. It's really tough to take any swings right now. All right, we'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks for showing up to the stream.